Going everybody, Bob here, and I'm going to show you my IT home lab and hopefully I give you some ideas on what you can do with your lab. Keep in mind, this lab I've set up is pretty much years in the making, and it's always morphing and adapting based on what I want to learn. So yours doesn't have to start out like this, and yours isn't limited to this. So let me start in the front here in my network. I'll start here. So just like a traditional home or small business network, I've got my ISPs, modem router combo, and a wireless router, right? This is my wireless router that I bought separate from the ISP's modem router combo. This is really just connecting me to the internet. That's really the only thing that it's responsible for. It is passing the IP address for my network, the public IP, to this firewall, which I'll get to in a second. This TP-Link wireless router is connecting all the devices wirelessly in the house. But this Dream Machine is a little bit different than what you would typically see in a home network. This Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro is a firewall security appliance combo. I say that because it's a firewall, it's a router, it's a switch, as you can see by all these ports. It's also a camera system. This bay right here actually could store a hard drive that can, support camera feeds and files of that size. And it's a cool device. I access the configuration through the browser. So they have a dashboard that's kind of cool. When I log into that, I can see all the applications that are being used in my network. I can see, what devices are taking up the most bandwidth. I can block based on IP. I can block, it makes it really easy to manage a firewall. And it's a device I recommend small and medium-sized businesses use because of that ease of use. When you get into the bigger enterprises, maybe you don't look at these, but in the medium size, you do. So this right here is a Mac Pro, and the trash can model, as some people call it. This is running Mac OS, and I use this primarily for any type of iOS development. There's a buddy of mine and we're actually building an iOS app right now. I'll talk about more of that in another video. But just know I remote into this Mac via VNC, which is like remote desktop, but for Mac and Linux. And I'll remote into the system and I'll access Xcode and write the app there, test the app there, and from anywhere on my network. I don't really allow much remote access to my network right now, just because I don't need it. So now this is where most of the magic happens. This is my home lab / home office area / studio. And I consider it a studio because I live stream out of here and I make content out of here. So this has been years in the making. I've got a desk here. I got this wooden top from IKEA, and then I think I bought this this stand from Amazon, and it's electric, so you can plug it in and it'll go up and down. So if you want to stand up and work or stay seated, you can kind of adjust it accordingly. And then I've got my 3 monitors. As you've seen, a lot of people in IT, whether they're software developers or in cybersecurity, they have lots of monitors. Some people have a wall of monitors. Right now, for me, 3 monitors is pretty good. Maybe there'll be a need for an additional in the future, but right now 3 is fine. And I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what I use those 3 monitors for. So one of the monitors, I'm typically, if there's any source code I'm looking at, I'll have it here. Or anything I got to read and reference, I'll have it here. This middle is the main thing I'm working on at the time. This is where I'm reading emails, writing emails, doing any hack the box stuff. This is the screen that's typically being captured when I'm doing a recording or a live stream and showing my screen. And then this one, general purpose, I don't always have a specific designated need for each monitor. It just really depends on what I'm doing at the time and what I feel like it can benefit. You know, I think you need at least 2 monitors to be able to really like have a reference. You know, I feel like many years ago when I first got a second monitor, it's like I added another brain in a way, because now it's like, oh wait, hold on, I can actually multitask now. Not that that's required to multitask. I'm just saying having additional monitors helps with that, and I change the orientation based on what I'm doing. If I'm live streaming on this screen, I'll have the chat. So I'll look at the chat. I don't typically put chat on screen. I'll just have it for myself. I'll reference it here, or and be able to see, because it's vertical, be able to see more people's chats and what they're saying. Yeah, that's it for my monitors. I've got a Ducky Zero keyboard, mechanical keyboard, so it does click and clack. It makes click and clack noises, helping me feel like I'm typing fast and feel like I'm more productive. I honestly just like a mechanical keyboard because it feels good to type on. Like, I'll often choose to type instead of copy and paste just because I want to feel the typing, as strange as that may seem. So this is a mouse, of course you know that, but it's an Anchor mouse that's ergonomic. So you see how I hold it sideways? I've been probably using this for about 5 years, and I love it compared to the traditional mouse. The last time I tried a traditional mouse, people, my wrist really did start hurting. As dorky as that might sound, it started hurting. I put I was playing Fortnite with my son, and he has a PC with a traditional mouse. I got to get him one of these, and just having your wrist bent like this the whole time is not optimal. So you may want to consider a ergonomic mouse in the near future, just because it does help in staying focused. Because if you're uncomfortable, it's hard to stay focused. This is a rack that I use for various things. I mean, right now it's basically just connecting this environment that I showed you, like my PC and things like that, to the internet, to the network I showed you there. I don't consistently keep this connected to the internet. I don't always need a wired connection. Right now my PC's wireless, but if I did a live stream, I would connect wired, and I'll show you sort of how I do that. You see this metallic cable runs to my PC. It's connected right now, but I have this really long black Ethernet cable that it's tangled up right now. Forgive this mess. And this right here, I'll run it all the way out there and plug it into my Dream Machine Pro right here, and it'll give me a physical connection to this whole area. So anytime I want to do some kind of cool lab setup, or just have a better connection for a live stream or faster upload of videos, I'll connect that. I don't always keep it connected though, because it is going straight through the house, and if I got family around, my wife and son, it doesn't look great. So typically I do a lot of my creation at night when I can have the whole downstairs and work with it. Occasionally I will run a long USB cable into the living room and bring a webcam in there if I want to do any type of video game stream. I've got that, and I've got a long HDMI cable that lets me still use this PC. This has like 32 gigs of RAM, an RTX 3080, an Intel i7, and it's a pretty beefy one. It has 2 terabytes of NVMe SSD storage, so for games and videos and editing and all that. Overall, it's a great machine to have up and going like that. What else over here? I got a lot. As you can see, I will say I compare myself to Anakin when he was a kid in The Phantom Menace, because, he collected a bunch of technology junk and then turned it into something. So when people give away technology, and they ask me if I want it, I usually take it as long as it's fixable, or as they absolutely know it works. Because one thing on that note is, if you're like, I just don't have a lot of money to be dumping into a home lab, I really get it, I do. But here's the thing, there may be people that are in your circle, people that you know that actually have technology they're not using, companies, school districts that like they'll get a lot of money, millions of dollars from like the government or from somewhere, and they just refresh all their technology, and then they literally have a dump or a garage they keep it in until some person picks it up to recycle it, and you might be the one that can pick that up. So keep that in mind. You can also buy stuff on Amazon, like for example this rack right here with a bunch of switches and routers you can see. I bought that years ago when I was studying for my CCNA, and I got that on Amazon. So I looked up CCNA lab kit and bought it on Amazon. I think it was $300. It came with IP phones. It came with the switches, a bunch of cables, and I was grateful for it at the time. I use it now when I'm making videos, and I plan to move a lot of those switches to that rack I showed you. What else is over here? You can see a ton of books. I'm an avid reader. I think that's one of the more important things that needs to be in your lab is good books, or at least a bookshelf or something to, reference. I think books are important and reading still is important, even with all the awesome resources we have online. And with that, that's pretty much it for my home lab. If you're going to set a lab up, the servers right here, these Dell PowerEdge servers came from a friend of mine who's a database administrator, and he said he just wasn't using them anymore. They're a little bit older, but they're still pretty beefy. I'll run VMs on these. I'll play with them, do just experimental things all the time. Sometimes I'll, bring them and use them as teaching tools to show people the difference between desktop servers desktop form factor and server form factor, and just a lot of different things like that. And so when you think about building your lab, and when I think about building mine, I'm always thinking about, what do I want to learn? Do I want to learn about Docker containers? Do I want to learn with a new hypervisor that just came out? Proxmox is one of them it didn't just come out, but I had recently learned about it, so I wanted to try it out. And I have to say that the home labbing is going to be such an important part of the journey, especially if you want to stick out in the crowd. Because if you take this home with you, you're doing this stuff at home, you're going to clearly be a cut above people that aren't, right? And I'm not saying you have to do this stuff at home, but I'm talking to people who are striving to want to be really great at this and even accelerate how fast you can learn this. Taking it home is only going to help. And, you see how I've basically turned this little kitchen area that would be a dining room into a lab. And that it is a lab, we're just missing other PCs and monitors for it to be a classroom lab environment. But that's something for you to think about. How do you build your home lab? What should I build my home lab based off of? Those could be some questions you have. Well, I would answer you with build it off of what you want to learn. Now, I don't have any NVIDIA H100s in here. I wish I did. I wish these had H100s in them. But the cost just isn't practical for that. So in some cases where the cost isn't practical for the application or thing you want to test, that's when you may want to look locally at the colleges. Did the college have a lab like that? Like I know in North Carolina State, for example, has a quantum computing lab. So they have a quantum computer in there, right? So that's where sometimes the schools can benefit you, is they may have resources that you can't get right now. But wherever possible, as I'm learning about new tools, as I'm hearing about them at conferences, I'm like, I need to try that. I usually try to figure out how to integrate it at home first. And even then, you're not giving your employer the full responsibility of your personal development. Because I think one thing that my home lab has empowered me to do is be in control of my learning. Now, you're always in control of your learning, but you don't always have the resources to learn the thing you want to learn. And maybe you notice people at work are, you know, you might have seen this where people at work seem to be gatekeeping knowledge because they know if everybody else knows that, they're not as valuable. Or you may come across people that they're territorial about what they want people to learn. So this helps defeat that in a way where it's not like, oh, well, my job's holding me back. You don't have to think that way. You can build it at home, you know. And I think about people talking about the cost, and I'll just say this because, you know, this is coming from a place of love. If you're like, oh, well, you know, $300 or $600 is too much to put into your own setup or to buy your own technology or whatever for your lab. Would you say that about a new game console? Would you say that about all the games you might buy, right? Like, and I'm talking to myself about that because for a period of time, I used to kind of complain about the cost of this as a hobby, but the returns have far outweighed the cost. I feel like I am a gamer, by the way, so I don't want y'all to feel like I'm judging. I'm not, because I am a gamer. But I think about all the game consoles and video games I've ever bought, and none of them increased my net worth, or none of them helped me become more employable in the IT job market. So when you think about the cost, you start looking at some of these servers, it's really not that bad, right? You can get a really nice refurbished Dell PowerEdge server right now for learning virtualization on Amazon for less than the cost of a Switch, a Nintendo Switch. Way less than the cost of a PS5. Way less than the cost of an Xbox Series X, right? So investing in something like that can have greater returns, right? Imagine you're like not doing so hot financially right now and you got some money around to buy some equipment that can help you learn at your house. You know, that learning experience you gain from setting it up, building it, tearing it down, practicing with it, maybe even disassembling it, can actually get you like $4,000 to $8,000, right? I mean, when you think about the entry level pay of an IT professional, you know, if you're looking at 50 to 60 to 70 grand a year, you know, that's like four grand a month ish, right? I mean, that's just ballpark math there, but I'm telling you, I mean, that's pretty good for the initial investment, right? If you spent $600 and your learning experience got you to $4,000 a month at least, I mean, even if it got you to $2,000 more or $2,000 a month, or you know, that's still good, I think. And so think about that. Really think about what I mentioned. If you have any questions and you need any ideas for labs you could do, assignments, setups you could do in your environment, I can give you some of that. I'll give you some now, but please comment below as well. I think considering where the industry is going, I would recommend setting up virtual machines. So use either get a server, get either Proxmox or VMware, and you can get those for free, and set it up on the server, learn how to install it, set up some VMs, whether it's Windows Server, Linux, Ubuntu, you know, you can pick Parrot or Kali to play around with the hacking stuff, and just run them, see how it works, figure out how to quickly transfer files to your hypervisor. What are the ways you can do it? How do you set up SSH with it? How could you get access remotely? And if you are going to access your lab remotely, be aware that if you're doing port forwarding or anything that requires allowing public access, there are scripts running, there are bots people have built that are looking for holes in networks. So keep that in mind. So you may want to think about setting up a VPN server, look up OpenVPN. And I'm going to start with that, not to like give you too much at first. But if you have questions and you need some advice on home labbing and what assignments you can do, I can come up with those on spot and give them to you in the comments. And for those that are more experienced at this, please weigh in on what's your lab look like. If you haven't made a video on it, make a video on it, do a write-up. And with that, I hope this has helped you and given you some insight. Keep learning.